Hey there, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Great to have you with us again.
And today, we're tackling something, well, pretty universal, isn't it? Job interviews.
Absolutely. It's a process most of us go through, sometimes many times, and it can be pretty nerve-wracking.
Definitely. So our goal today is to really dive deep, go beyond the surface level tips.
Yeah, we want to equip you with, solid strategies for handling those questions everyone dreads, how to frame your answers effectively, and also something often overlooked, body language, what you're saying without saying anything.
Exactly. Think of this as like your insider's guide. We want to give you that confidence boost that comes from being genuinely prepared.
And to do that, we've pulled together insights from a whole range of places. We're talking YouTube channels like Learn English Let's Talk and Learn English with EnglishClass101.com.
Which are great for the practical language side of things. Plus, articles from big names in career advice and learning: Coursera, Psychology Today, The Muse, Very Well Mind, Bonvita, helpguide.org, Hive.
Michael Page, Singapore. We've even looked at discussions on Reddit specifically for career guidance to get some real-world perspectives.
And more. Grow with Google, Science of People, Dr. Weber Coaching, a Head app, Novoresume. It's a pretty comprehensive list.
It is. So our mission really is to sift through all of this, find the connections, the key takeaways, and present it to you in a way that's easy to digest and actually useful.
A shortcut to being well-informed, hopefully with a few surprises and those aha moments along the way.
Exactly. So where should we start? Probably with the classic opener.
Has to be. Tell me about yourself. It sounds so simple, but it often throws people off.
It really does. What's the interviewer really trying to get at with this question? It's not just small talk, is it?
Not at all. They're essentially asking for your professional elevator pitch. They want a brief, focused introduction to see, right off the bat, if you seem like a potential match for the role and the company culture. It's your first chance to frame your narrative.
So not your life story from birth onwards.
Definitely not. Keep it relevant. They don't need to know about your childhood pet unless, maybe, you're applying to be a vet.
Huh. Good point. So how do you structure it? Nayara from Learn English Let's Talk had some good points here. She mentioned starting with where you're from.
Yeah, briefly, like I grew up in Manchester, or I'm originally from, just a quick grounding point. Then your education.
Right. I studied economics at LSE or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Mentioning your degree, bachelor's, master's.
Exactly. And crucially, connecting it, if possible. So not just I studied history, but maybe my history degree gave me strong research and analytical skills, which I see are important for this role.
Making that link.
Okay.
And then interests.
Relevant interests. So I'm really interested in sustainable technologies if you're applying to a green energy firm, for example. It shows genuine alignment.
Got it. And work history, obviously.
Yes, a brief overview. For the past 5 years, I've worked at Company X in the marketing sector, something like that. But as Naira pointed out, this varies. If you're younger, maybe just out of school.
Right, you might not have a long work history. So what then?
Then you lean more heavily on your education, projects you did, internships, volunteer work, anything that showcases relevant skills and your drive. Focus on transferable skills.
Like teamwork on a university project, or maybe meeting deadlines for a volunteer organization.
Precisely. And Naira's final point was about your goal, ending with something like, and I'm now looking to leverage my skills in data analysis in a more client-facing role like this one. It connects your past to this future opportunity.
Okay, that structure makes sense. But the key thing that kept coming up across sources was tailoring this answer. You can't just have one generic script, can you?
Absolutely not. That's probably the biggest mistake people make. You have to customize it for each specific job. Look at the job description, research the company's website, their mission, their recent news.
And then pick the parts of your story, your experience, your skills, your goals, that directly speak to their needs.
Exactly. It shows you've done your homework and you're genuinely interested in this role, not just any role.
Juan's example from that Facebook comment on EnglishClass101.com seems like a good, concise template for hitting those key points: background, education, relevant experience, future goal.
Yeah, it was a neat summary. And the folks on Reddit, on Learn Career Guidance, they often have really practical takes. What did they add?
They really framed it as telling your resume like a story. Don't just list facts, but weave them into a narrative with a bit of, personality.
Adding some flavor. I like that.
Yeah. But keep it concise. They suggest around 2 minutes max. Focus on the professional you, the relevant stuff. And again, customize, customize, customize. Confidence and positivity were also stressed.
Makes sense. That first impression sets the tone. Did Reddit mention adding something personal? I've heard that advice before.
You did, including something maybe interesting or personable to make you more memorable. But it feels like a bit of a tightrope walk, doesn't it?
It really does. You have to be careful. A hobby could work if it demonstrates a relevant skill, like maybe team sports showing collaboration, or complex board games showing strategic thinking.
Or maybe a unique experience that shows resilience or initiative.
Yeah, but keep it brief and professional. Avoid anything too quirky, controversial, or, oversharing. It should add value to your professional persona, not detract from it.
And the big don'ts, according to Reddit and others.
Number 1, don't ramble, stick to the key points, respect their time. Number 2, don't make things up. Authenticity matters, and experienced interviewers can often tell if something doesn't ring true.
So basically, tell me about yourself as your strategic opening move. Focused, tailored, confident, and authentic.
You got it. It's your chance to make a strong, positive first impression.
Okay, let's move on. Another absolute staple. What are your strengths? What are they fishing for here? Just trying to see if you're confident.
It's partly about confidence, yeah, but more about self-awareness and how you articulate your value. They want to see if you understand what you're good at, and importantly, if those strengths align with what they need for the job.
And just listing adjectives isn't enough, right? Like, I'm hardworking and motivated.
Right, that's too vague. The key, as highlighted by sources like Coursera, is to provide concrete examples or evidence. Show, don't just tell.
Okay, let's take one of Coursera's examples. Detail-oriented. How do you make that land effectively?
So instead of just saying it, you'd give an example. Maybe, I'm very detail-oriented. For instance, in my previous role as a content editor, I implemented a new proofreading checklist that reduced published errors by 15% in the first quarter.
Quantifying it makes it much stronger.
Absolutely. Or linking it to a specific outcome, like the content creator example. Focusing on precise language and meeting deadlines consistently leads to high-quality output that clients appreciate.
Okay, another one. Positive attitude. This feels even harder to make concrete.
It can seem fluffy, yeah. But you connect it to behavior and results. Coursera's example was someone in customer service. You could say, I maintain a positive attitude, even in challenging situations. This helps me empathize with customers, understand their needs better, and find solutions, which regularly led to positive feedback scores in my previous position.
So linking the attitude to specific actions like empathy and problem solving, and then to an outcome like good feedback.
Exactly. And their third example was solving problems.
How do you show that effectively?
You tell a mini story. Describe a specific problem, what you did, the steps you took, the research, who you consulted, and what the outcome was. Like the electrical engineer example they gave someone who's solutions-focused, researches actively, asks questions. You could say, I enjoy tackling complex problems. For example, we faced an unexpected integration issue on Project X. I took the initiative to research potential workarounds, collaborated with the software team to test a solution, and we got the project back on track within 48 hours.
Using a specific situation makes it much more credible.
It does. It demonstrates the strength in action, not just as a concept. And for someone like our listener who wants to learn quickly, understanding how to articulate these strengths is a skill in itself. It's about recognizing those qualities in yourself and framing them effectively.
Yeah, it's not just about having the strength, but knowing how to talk about it in a way that resonates with an employer.
Precisely. It's providing proof of value.
Okay, now for the one that makes people squirm. What are your weaknesses?
Yeah.
This feels like a trap, is it?
It can feel like one for sure, but smart interviewers aren't usually trying to trip you up. They're looking for self-awareness, honesty, and crucially, a growth mindset.
Yeah.
Can you recognize areas for improvement, and what are you doing about them?
So admitting a weakness isn't necessarily bad.
Not if you handle it right. In fact, showing that you're aware of a weakness and actively working on it can actually be seen as a major strength. It shows maturity and proactiveness.
So the strategy is, don't just state a flaw, but talk about how you're addressing it.
Exactly. The magic formula is self-awareness, identify the weakness, plus action, what you're doing about it, plus result learning, the positive outcome or progress.
How do you even choose a weakness to talk about?
Good question. Reflect honestly on your professional life. Where have you received constructive feedback? What skills, maybe technical or soft skills, are you actively trying to develop? Are there productivity habits you're working on?
And what should you definitely avoid saying?
Avoid the cliches disguised as weaknesses, like, I'm a perfectionist, or I work too hard, unless you can back it up with a genuine, specific example of how it has negatively impacted you and what you're doing to manage it.
Right, the humble brag doesn't really work.
Not usually. Also, and this is critical, don't mention a weakness that's fundamental to the job you're applying for. If it's a heavily team-based role, don't say you struggle with collaboration.
Yeah, that's shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
Coursera had some good examples of how to frame these constructively. Let's take fear of public speaking.
Okay, so you acknowledge it. Public speaking hasn't always been my natural strength. Then the action. To address this, I joined Toastmasters a year ago and make it a point to volunteer for presentation opportunities. And the result. It significantly boosted my confidence, and I was even able to help coach a junior team member for their presentation last month.
See, that turns it into a positive story about growth. What about something like procrastination? That feels risky to admit.
It can be, so you need to frame it carefully. Maybe link it to an underlying cause, if appropriate, like Coursera suggested perhaps a fear of not doing something perfectly. Then focus heavily on the actions. I recognized I sometimes delayed starting large, complex tasks. I've implemented strategies like breaking projects into smaller milestones, using Trello, and blocking out focused work time in my Google Calendar. And the result? This has really improved my time management and ensures I tackle the most challenging parts earlier.
So you're showing you've analyzed the problem and found practical solutions.
Exactly. It's about demonstrating proactive self-management. Another one they had was difficulty delegating, often linked to perfectionism.
Yes, the if you want it done right, do it yourself trap. How do you position that?
Acknowledge the tendency. In the past, I sometimes found it hard to delegate tasks, wanting to ensure everything was perfect. Action. However, I've learned the importance of leveraging team strengths. I now make a conscious effort to identify tasks that are suitable for delegation, provide clear instructions, and trust my team members. Result: this has freed up my time for more strategic work and actually led to more efficient project completion overall.
That shows growth in leadership and teamwork. Okay, one more from Coursera. Lacking experience with the specific tool or software mentioned in the job description.
This one's common. Be honest, but immediately pivot to proactivity. While I haven't used specific software extensively in my previous role, I saw it listed in the job description. I've already enrolled in an online introductory course on platform name to get up to speed. Then add enthusiasm. I'm a quick learner with software, and I'm really excited about the prospect of applying it in this role.
So, honesty combined with initiative and enthusiasm.
That's the key. It shows you're not afraid to learn and you're already taking steps. All these examples show how you can address the weakness question honestly while still highlighting positive attributes like self-awareness, proactivity, and commitment to development.
That's incredibly helpful. It reframes it from a question to fear into an opportunity to showcase positive traits. Okay, let's broaden out a bit. The Muse had a great list of other common questions. How did you hear about this position? Seems simple, but is there more to it?
There definitely is. It's another chance to show genuine interest. If a specific person referred you, mention their name. Networking is valued. If you saw it at a particular event or read an article about the company that sparked your interest, say that.
What if you just saw it on a job board like LinkedIn or Indeed?
Even then, don't just say LinkedIn. Say, what about the posting on LinkedIn caught your eye? I saw the posting on LinkedIn and I was immediately drawn to the focus on specific aspect in the description because it aligns perfectly with my experience in. It shows you read it carefully.
Right. Adds a layer of specificity. Okay, next. Why do you want to work at this company? How do you avoid sounding generic here?
Research, research, research. Avoid answers like, it seems like a great company with good opportunities. That could be said about anywhere. Dig deeper. What's unique about them?
So find something specific, like their company values, a recent project they launched, their market position, their approach to innovation.
Exactly. Mention something concrete. I really admire company name's commitment to sustainability, particularly the specific initiative you launched last year. Or, I've been following your growth in the specific market sector, and I'm excited by the prospect of contributing to that expansion. Show you know who they are.
And connecting it back to yourself, presumably.
Yes, briefly.
Yeah.
And I believe my skills in X could really support that initiative. It makes the connection clear.
Makes sense. Similar question, but slightly different focus. Why do you want this specific job?
Here, the focus shifts more towards the role itself. What excites you about the day-to-day responsibilities? What specific challenges mentioned in the description appeal to you? How does it fit your skills and career path?
The Muse example was good, the social media manager applying to a gaming company.
Right. They didn't just say, I like games. They mentioned their specific knowledge of the company's products and their relevant professional experience with a platform like TikTok, which was likely key for the role. It's about matching your skills and enthusiasm to the job's requirements.
Okay, now the big one. Why should we hire you? Or sometimes phrased as, what can you bring to the company? This feels like the core sales pitch.
It absolutely is. This is where you need to clearly articulate your value proposition. The Muse suggests thinking about it in 3 parts.
3 parts. Okay, what are they?
1, you can do the job and deliver great results. 2, you'll fit in well with the team and the company culture. 3, you'd be a better hire than the other candidates.
Okay, how do you actually demonstrate those things in an answer?
For the first part, doing the job, you highlight your relevant skills and, crucially, past achievements. Use data if you can. I have 5 years of experience in project management, and in my last role, I successfully delivered Project Z 10% under budget.
Concrete results. For the second part, culture fit.
This goes back to your research. Mention specific aspects of their culture or values that resonate with you and briefly explain why you'd thrive there. I was drawn to your collaborative approach as I really valued teamwork and achieved great results on cross-functional teams at my previous company.
And the third part, being better than others. That sounds tricky without sounding arrogant.
It is. You don't want to badmouth other candidates. Instead, focus on what makes you uniquely suited. Do you have a specific combination of skills, niche expertise, a particular type of experience that directly addresses a challenge they're facing?
Like the Muse examples the sales trainer experienced with rapid growth for a tech company, or someone with deep knowledge of a market they want to enter.
Exactly. It's about highlighting your unique selling points in the context of their specific needs. It requires confidence, but framed correctly, it's very powerful.
Okay, another one that requires concrete examples. What is your greatest professional achievement? This is prime territory for this STAR method, right?
Yeah, absolutely perfect for STAR. Situation, task, action, result. It gives your answer structure and impact.
Can you quickly recap how STAR works in this context?
Sure. Situation. Briefly set the scene. What was the context? Task. What was your specific responsibility or goal in that situation? Action. What specific steps did you take? Use I statements. This is the core of your story. Result. What was the positive outcome? Quantify it if possible. What did you achieve?
The Muse example about convincing the town to switch to LED lighting really showed STAR in action.
It did. Situation. Town using old lighting. Task. Convince officials to switch. Meet sales goals. Action. Created info packets, held community events, gave presentations. Result. Met goals, secured contracts, got media attention, earned a promotion. It's a complete, compelling story.
It really drives the point home. Okay, how about behavioral questions like, tell me about a challenge or conflict you faced at work and how you dealt with it? They're trying to gauge your problem solving and people skills.
Precisely. They want to see how you navigate difficulties. The key here is honesty, but without getting bogged down in negativity or blaming others. Focus on the resolution and what you learned.
So briefly describe the challenge, explain the steps you took to address it constructively, and emphasize the positive outcome or the lesson learned moving forward.
Exactly. Show resilience and maturity. Similarly for, tell me about a time you demonstrated leadership skills.
And leadership doesn't just mean having a manager title, right?
Not at all. It could be taking initiative on a project, mentoring a colleague, stepping up to solve a problem when no one else did, motivating a team during a tough time. Again, use the STAR method to structure your example.
Like the Muse example of the team leader adapting tasks and supporting a nervous colleague, showed empathy, flexibility, support.
Great leadership qualities, even without a fancy title.
Okay, tricky territory. Questions about leaving previous jobs. Why are you leaving your current job?
Keep it positive and forward-looking. Focus on seeking new challenges, growth opportunities, or a role that's a better fit for your long-term goals. Don't badmouth your current or former employer.
What if you were laid off due to restructuring?
Be straightforward and factual. My position was eliminated as part of a company-wide restructuring. Keep it brief and unemotional.
And if you were actually fired? That's tough.
It is. Honesty is generally the best policy, but frame it carefully. Acknowledge the situation briefly, take responsibility for your part if appropriate, but focus on what you learned from the experience and how you've grown since then. Show it was a learning opportunity, not just a negative event.
Okay, what about explaining an employment gap?
Again, be honest but concise. You don't need to overshare personal details. Focus on anything productive you did during that time. Maybe you took courses, volunteered, worked on personal projects, or even gained valuable life skills through caregiving, for example. Frame it positively and link any skills gained back to the job.
All right, focus on the constructive aspects. Then there are questions about style. What's your work style? Or what's your management style if you're applying for a leadership role?
For work style, talk about how you approach tasks, collaboration, communication preferences. Are you independent? Collaborative? Detail-focused? Big picture? For management style, keywords might be supportive, communicative, results-oriented, empowering. The Muse suggests highlighting being strong but flexible.
And what are you passionate about? Does this have to relate directly to the job?
Ideally, find a connection if you can, but it's also okay to show you're a well-rounded person. Just keep it professional and relatively brief. It adds a human element.
How do you plan to achieve your career goals?
Show you've thought about your future and have a plan. Mention specific steps, like pursuing certifications, the CPA example in the Muse, gaining certain experiences, or learning new skills. Ideally, link how this role fits into that plan.
Okay, and what would your first few months look like in this role? This is testing your initiative.
Yes, and whether you've thought realistically about onboarding. Show you'd focus on learning, understanding the company, the team, the processes. Maybe mention meeting key people, familiarizing yourself with systems, and perhaps suggesting a manageable starter project based on your understanding of the role. It shows you're ready to hit the ground running.
Practicalities. When can you start?
Be realistic. Consider your notice period at your current job. Give a clear time frame.
Are you willing to relocate?
Be honest about your willingness and any limitations. If you're not willing, say so clearly. If you are, confirm it. If you're open but have conditions, state them briefly.
Phew, that's a lot of common questions. What about those weird ones like brain teasers? How many tennis balls fit in a limousine?
Yeah, those pop up sometimes. With those, the interviewer usually cares less about the actual answer and more about how you think. Talk through your logic out loud. How would you estimate the volume? What assumptions are you making? Show your problem-solving process.
So it's about the journey, not the destination. And personality questions like, if you were an animal, what would you be?
Similar idea. There's no single right answer. Try to pick something and briefly explain why, ideally linking the animal's characteristics to positive traits relevant to work, like maybe an owl for wisdom observation, or a dolphin for collaboration intelligence. But don't overthink it.
Okay, that's a fantastic rundown of common questions and strategies. Let's shift gears now to something that runs alongside everything you say. Body language. It's huge, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely massive. You're communicating constantly, whether you realize it or not. And first impressions, as Psychology Today points out, are heavily influenced by these nonverbal cues.
They talked about immediacy cues. Things that make people like you more, basically.
Exactly. Things that signal warmth, interest, and connection. Eye contact is a big one.
How much eye contact is right, though? Bonvita suggested not staring intensely.
Right. It's about finding a balance. Aim for consistent, soft eye contact, maybe looking away briefly every 5 seconds or so, perhaps when you're gathering your thoughts, to keep it natural. It shows you're engaged and listening.
What else? Leaning in.
A slight forward lean signals interest. Orient yourself towards the interviewer. But, as Hive noted, be mindful of personal space, don't get too close. Bonvita suggested maybe a 45-degree angle initially, then lean in subtly when engaged.
And smiling. Seems obvious, but important.
Very. A genuine smile makes you seem approachable, positive, and likable. A pleasant expression generally gets evaluated more positively.
Facial animation and gestures, too.
Yeah, being moderately expressive with your face and using natural open hand gestures makes you seem more dynamic and engaging. Bonvita stressed using gestures that complement what you're saying. Keeping them open palms visible sometimes can signal honesty. Avoid closed-off gestures.
And your voice.
A warm, expressive tone varying your pitch and pace slightly is much more inviting than a flat monotone. Emotion in your voice draws people in.
Okay, so those are the positives. What about the common mistakes? Very well mind listed. Things that send the wrong signals.
Slouching is a big one. It screams disinterest or low confidence. Avoiding eye contact, as we said, can suggest dishonesty or nervousness.
Fidgeting. Tapping feet, clicking pens.
Yeah, that signals restlessness or anxiety. It can be really distracting. A weak, limp handshake is often cited as giving a poor first impression, too.
And crossing your arms.
That's a classic closed-off signal. Makes you look defensive or unreceptive, as Bonvita also mentioned. Clenched fists or constantly fiddling with your hands also suggest tension.
Interesting. They also mentioned a lack of mirroring. What's that about?
Mirroring is subtly, unconsciously copying some of the other person's body language, maybe their posture or a small gesture. Very well, mind and science of people suggest that when done naturally, it builds rapport and a sense of connection. Like if they lean forward, you might subtly lean forward too.
But you have to be careful not to overdo it.
Oh, absolutely. It needs to be subtle and subconscious. Conscious, obvious mimicking looks weird and insincere.
Bonvita in a head app had some specific positive techniques. Tall yet casual posture.
Yeah, stand or sit upright, shoulders back, but not stiff like a soldier. Confident but relaxed. Taking up a comfortable amount of space, not shrinking, but not aggressively sprawling either.
Releasing facial tension. How do you do that?
Be aware of your jaw, forehead, around your eyes. Consciously try to relax those muscles before and during the interview. Practice in a mirror. It makes you look more open and less stressed.
Emanating a positive force field. That sounds a bit mystical.
Maybe. But it's about projecting positive energy, smiling, being engaged, having that warm tone. And they mention open palms at chest level sometimes to show honesty, gentle gestures reinforcing your words, and relaxed, flowing movements signaling confidence.
Helpguy.org talked about the roles of body language, like repeating what you say or contradicting it. Why is that important?
Because you want your nonverbals to align with your verbal message. If you say you're excited but you're slouching and monotone, your body language is contradicting your words, and the interviewer will likely believe the body language. You want your gestures and expression to complement and emphasize your points.
So self-awareness is key, as Very Well Mind said. Maybe practicing answers in front of a mirror isn't such a bad idea.
Not at all. Or record yourself on video. It can be revealing to see what you actually look like when you're speaking. Are you making eye contact? Are you fidgeting? What's your posture like?
And showing you're listening is also part of body language, right?
Definitely. Nodding appropriately, maintaining eye contact while they speak, maybe a small smile or These all show you're engaged and actively processing what they're saying.
Science of People had some interesting specific hacks, like the triple nod. What was that again?
Yeah, the idea is that if you nod 3 times fairly quickly while someone is speaking, it non-verbally encourages them to continue, to elaborate more. It can supposedly create a more positive interaction, build a sort of yes set.
Interesting. And mirroring their punctuator.
A punctuator is like a signature gesture or expression someone uses when they emphasize a point, maybe a hand chop or a specific head tilt. Science of People suggests that subtly identifying and occasionally mirroring this, again, very subtly, can build subconscious rapport. Shows you're really tuned in.
And the subtle lean-in to amplify the vibe.
Just a slight shift forward when you're particularly interested or agreeing with a point. It physically signals engagement and connection. But like all these things, timing and subtlety are everything.
It all comes back to building that connection, that rapport, doesn't it? As Psychology Today said, it can even help overcome biases. And Hive's reminder to move intentionally, calmly, not rushed, adds to that composed image.
It's a whole layer of communication that's incredibly powerful. Mastering it, or at least being mindful of it, can make a huge difference in how you're perceived.
Okay, so you've answered all their questions, you've managed your body language. Now we get to the end, and they ask, do you have any questions for us? Is this just a formality?
Absolutely not. This is a crucial part of the interview. Both Learn English with EnglishClass101.com and the Reddit community strongly emphasize this. Having good questions prepared shows you're genuinely interested, you've been listening, and you're thinking seriously about the role.
And having no questions is a red flag.
It can be, yeah. It might suggest a lack of preparation or real interest. It's also your chance to figure out if you actually want to work there. Remember, interviews are a two-way street.
Good point. Niara from Learn English Let's Talk had some solid suggestions. What projects would I be working on? Why is that a good one?
It gets the interviewer picturing you in the role, thinking concretely about your potential contribution. It makes it more real for them.
What else did she suggest?
What is the biggest challenge about working here? Or maybe phrased as, what are the biggest priorities for the team right now? It shows you're thinking realistically. You could also flip it and ask about the biggest joy or reward. And asking about the team, what kind of team would I be part of? What are the different roles? Helps you understand the dynamics.
Now, Niora and others mentioned holding off on the salary question initially. When is the right time, generally?
The consensus, from sources like English Class 101 and Michael Page, is usually later in the process. Often after the first interview, maybe in a second round, or when an offer seems more likely. Sometimes the interviewer brings it up first. Asking too early can make it seem like money is your only motivation.
Okay, so save that one. What other good questions could you ask? Reddit and Michael Page had loads.
Yeah, tons of great ones. Asking about success is good. How do you define success in this role? Or what does success look like 3 months from now? Also, what qualities make someone successful here?
Shows you're focused on performing well. What about growth?
Definitely ask about that. What are the opportunities for growth and development in this role or within the company? It shows ambition.
And questions about the culture or the manager.
Crucial for figuring out fit. How would you describe the company culture? What's the team dynamic like if you're talking to your potential manager? How would you describe your management style? Or how is feedback typically given?
Those seem really important for understanding the day-to-day reality. What about asking about the interviewer's own experience?
That can be a great way to build rapport. What attracted you to this company? Or what's your favorite part about working here? People often like talking about their own positive experiences.
Reddit had some quite direct, insightful ones too, like asking if the interviewer has any reservations about you. That seems bold.
It is bold, but it shows confidence and a willingness to address potential concerns head-on. Something like, based on our conversation, is there anything that makes you hesitate about my fit for this role? It gives you a chance to clarify or counter any doubts.
Well, okay. Other strong ones from Reddit.
Let's see. Which part of the position has the steepest learning curve and what support is available? Shows you anticipate challenges and think about solutions. What are the main challenges the team is facing right now? Shows strategic thinking. What's the difference between someone meeting expectations and someone exceeding them in this role? Helps you understand performance standards.
Asking about the boss's style from a potential teammate's perspective was another interesting Reddit tip.
Yeah, if you meet potential peers, asking them, what's manager's name like to work for, can give you a different perspective. Also, questions about company direction. What are the company's main goals for the next couple of years, and how does this role contribute?
It really seems like the key is asking questions that show you've done your research, you're thinking deeply about the role in the company, and you're trying to assess if it's the right place for you.
Exactly that. It leaves a strong final impression that you're engaged, thoughtful, and serious about the opportunity. It's your chance to interview them too.
Okay, excellent. Now let's circle back to that crucial question. Why should we hire you? But look at it through the lens of Novorzame's advice. They had some very clear don'ts.
They did. They were quite specific about pitfalls to avoid. First off, as we touched on with salary, don't make money or perks the reason you give for why they should hire you. Your motivation should be about the role, the company, the contribution you can make.
And avoid generic answers.
Right. Absolutely. I'm a hard worker and a great team player isn't specific enough. Tailor it. Also, don't ramble or give way too much information. Keep it focused. What about attitude? Avoid arrogance. Confidence is good, arrogance is not. Don't imply they'd be lost without you. Conversely, don't sound desperate or needy. I just really need a job. And definitely don't display low self-esteem or undersell yourself.
Honesty is important too. No lying or exaggerating.
Never a good idea. It can easily backfire. And finally, while you absolutely need to prepare an answer, don't make it sound like you're reciting a memorized script. It needs to sound natural and genuine.
Okay, so those are the don'ts. What are the core do's, according to Novorzame, for crafting a really strong answer?
Number one, again, is research. Know the company, understand the role inside out, then explicitly connect your specific skills and experience to the job requirements listed. Don't make them guess the connection.
Highlight your unique selling points.
Yes. What makes you stand out? What unique value do you bring? And back it up with evidence. Mention concrete achievements, using data and numbers whenever possible to quantify your successes.
Show enthusiasm too.
Definitely. Express genuine interest in the role and a clear desire to contribute to their company's success. And finally, briefly explain why you think you'd be a good fit for their specific company culture. Show you've thought about that aspect too.
Novorzame gave examples for so many different roles. Content writer, account manager, software engineer, nurse, electrician. What was the common element in all the good answers?
The common thread was always that direct, specific link. The candidate clearly understood what the role required and what the company needed, and they articulated exactly how their proven skills and past accomplishments met those specific needs. It wasn't generic. It was a targeted pitch demonstrating direct value.
So it's about saying, here's what you need, and here's the proof that I can deliver exactly that, and maybe even more.
That's the essence of it. A clear, confident, evidence-based case for why you are the best solution to their hiring need.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, one last area to touch on briefly, salary negotiation. We know not to ask too early, but when the time comes, what's the approach?
Michael Page had good advice here. First, know your worth. Research typical salary ranges for that role in that industry in your location. Use sites like Glassdoor, LinkedIn Salary Pay Scale. Have a realistic range in mind.
Preparation is key, again.
Always. And when you state your desired salary or negotiate an offer, be ready to justify it. Don't just say, I want X amount. Explain why based on your experience level, your specific skills, industry standards, and the value you'll bring.
So link it back to your qualifications and market rates.
Exactly. And throughout the negotiation, maintain your enthusiasm for the job itself. You don't want them to think it's only about the money. Reiterate your excitement about the opportunity.
And is it okay to ask for time to consider an offer?
Absolutely. Michael Page confirms this. It's a big decision. It's perfectly reasonable to thank them for the offer and ask for a day or two to review it fully before giving your final answer. Don't feel pressured into an immediate yes.
Great advice. Wow, we've covered a massive amount of ground today. This has been a really comprehensive deep dive.
It really has. From that first tell me about yourself to navigating salary talks.
Let's try and quickly boil down the absolute key takeaways for everyone listening. What are the must-dos?
Okay, top level. Preparation is everything. Research to the company, the role, anticipate questions, tailor your answers especially, tell me about yourself, and why should we hire you?
Be ready to talk about strengths with specific examples. Use the STAR method for achievements and behavioral questions. Address weaknesses constructively, focusing on self-awareness and growth.
Master your nonverbals posture. Eye contact, gestures matter hugely. Project confidence and engagement. Always, always prepare thoughtful questions to ask them. It shows genuine interest.
And when you make your case for why they should hire you, focus on their needs and provide concrete evidence of your value. Finally, know your worth and be prepared to articulate it calmly and professionally during salary discussions.
That covers the main pillars, I think. It's a lot, but focusing on these areas can make a massive difference.
It really can. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this detailed journey through the world of job interviews. We hope you found this deep dive genuinely helpful.
We really hope it gives you some practical tools and a confidence boost for your next interview.
And one last time, if you did find value here, please consider subscribing to the English Easy Here YouTube channel. It helps us keep bringing you this kind of content.
Definitely. And maybe a final thought to leave you with.
Go for it.
Think about just one or two things from our discussion today. Maybe it's preparing a STAR story for your biggest achievement, or practicing your tell me about yourself pitch, or even just being more mindful of your posture. Which small step can you take this week to feel more prepared for your next opportunity?
That's a great takeaway. Start small, build confidence.
Right, so we're all about taking interesting sources, usually ones you, our listeners, bring to our attention, and really digging deep.
Extracting those key nuggets of information, yeah. The goal is always to help you get properly well-informed and, hopefully make it enjoyable too.
Sort of a shortcut to understanding what really matters in a particular source.
Yes,
And today, you've brought us a really fantastic resource. It's a YouTube video.
That's right. It's called English Vocabulary in 1 Hour. Advanced vocabulary lesson, and it's from the channel Speak English with Vanessa.
Vanessa. Yeah, she's great. Very popular channel. And this video, well, it's absolutely jam-packed with useful language, isn't it?
It really is. An hour just filled with vocabulary. So we thought we'd focus our deep dive today on 2 core areas that she covers in quite a lot of detail.
Okay, what are they?
First, personality expressions. So, all those we use to describe ourselves and other people, character traits, that kind of thing.
Always useful. And the second?
And second, vocabulary related to the human body. Anatomy, but also, crucially, the idioms that go along with body parts.
Oh, interesting. Body idioms are such a huge part of English.
They really are. And, these 2 areas, personality and body, they're just incredibly practical. Think about it. Well, whether you're trying to understand why a character in a book acts a certain way, or you're navigating a tricky social situation at work, or even just trying to tell someone how you're feeling physically.
Yeah.
Having a rich vocabulary in these domains, it's essential for communicating clearly and effectively. You need the right words.
Totally agree. So that brings us to our mission for today's deep dive.
Which is?
We want to equip you, our listener, with that vocabulary. We want to give you the tools, the words, the phrases to express yourself more precisely when you're talking about personalities.
Yours or someone else's.
Exactly. And also to feel more confident and knowledgeable when you're discussing anything related to the body, from basic parts to those sometimes confusing idioms.
Sounds like a plan. It's all about building that confidence and fluency.
All right, let's dive right in then, shall we? We'll kick things off with those personality expressions. Seems like a good place to start.
Okay. So, as you mentioned, Vanessa covered almost 100 personality expressions in just that 1 hour, which is pretty impressive density.
100? Wow. How did she structure that? Just a list?
No, not just a list, thankfully. Her approach was actually quite interesting. She used a kind of informal personality test.
A personality test, like Myers-Briggs or something.
Not quite that formal, more like a series of 6 thought-provoking questions designed to make you think about different aspects of personality.
Okay, I see. And I seem to recall from watching it, she had some thoughts on personality tests in general.
She did, yeah. She was quite upfront about it. Candid, as you said earlier. She basically expressed a personal skepticism.
Skepticism about their accuracy? Or what?
About relying on them too heavily,
Yeah.
Relying on these external quizzes to definitively label who you are. She felt our self-understanding shouldn't necessarily be boxed in by predefined categories.
Right, okay. Fair enough. A lot of people feel that way, but
Yeah.
she still used the test format.
Yes. And this is where, as you put it gets really interesting. She made this brilliant pivot. She acknowledged her skepticism, but then immediately highlighted how valuable these kinds of questions, these kinds of reflections, are for learning vocabulary.
Ah, I get it. So even if you don't buy into the specific test result, the process of thinking about, say, whether you're organized or spontaneous.
Exactly. That process opens up a whole world of descriptive language. It forces you to consider different facets of character.
So the goal wasn't psychological profiling.
Not at all. The aim was purely linguistic, using these common personality considerations, things we all think about, as a springboard.
A springboard to introduce all the relevant English vocabulary. Adjectives, nouns.
Precisely. All the words we can use to articulate those traits, whether we see them in ourselves or in other people.
That's actually a really smart teaching approach.
Sure.
Makes it more engaging than just memorizing lists.
It really does. And she didn't just stop there either. It wasn't just her presenting words in isolation.
Oh.
Well, she went the extra mile. At the end of the video, there's this great segment where you see 5 native English speakers, friends, I think, actually describing each other using some of the vocabulary she just taught.
Oh, that's fantastic, because seeing it used naturally in spontaneous conversation, that provides such crucial context, doesn't it?
Absolutely crucial. Hearing how native speakers actually apply these terms, the connotations, the nuances, how it plays out in real-time interaction, that adds a layer of understanding you just don't get from definitions alone.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so let's get into those 6 personality questions she used. What was the first one?
The first one centered on organization. Basically, are your travel plans generally organized? What about your home and office? Are they pretty tidy? That sort of thing.
Right, the classic, organized versus maybe more spontaneous type. So if you lean towards organized, what vocabulary did she offer?
Well, some straightforward positive options first. Simply organized, obviously, then put together.
Put together. I like that. It suggests someone who's well prepared, in control.
Exactly. And similar to that, the more idiomatic phrase, have it together.
She really has it together. Yeah, implies a general sense of competence, like they're on top of things.
Right. And then she also brought in the idea of being a type.
Ah, type A personality. That's a common one.
Yeah, very common informal label. Used to describe someone often highly driven, ambitious, organized, maybe a bit more focused on achievement, deadlines. It instantly conveys a whole cluster of traits.
It does. And she included qualifiers, too, you mentioned.
Yes, which was thoughtful. Qualifiers like somewhat, kind of, pretty. So you could say, I'm kind of a type, or pretty organized.
That's important, isn't it? Because these things aren't usually black and white. Most people are somewhere on a spectrum.
Exactly. Very few people are at the absolute extremes. Then she also offered the word doer.
A doer, someone who takes action, gets things done, proactive.
Yeah. And finally, for this side, the simple adjective clean, referring specifically to the tidiness of physical spaces.
Makes sense. We often linked a clean desk to an organized mind, rightly or wrongly.
Well, it can certainly lead others to infer a sense of internal orderliness, even if that's not always the reality inside someone's head.
True. Okay, so that's the organized, tidy side. What if your answer to that first question leaned the other way? More towards spontaneous, maybe a bit messy.
Right. So you might describe yourself simply as spontaneous, highlighting that preference for the unplanned, going with the flow.
Or maybe creative. Sometimes people link creativity with a less rigid environment.
She did mention creative as a possible positive spin, yeah. Suggesting that maybe a less structured space fosters innovation, thinking outside the box.
And the opposite of A-type.
Is B-type, yeah. Generally seen as more relaxed, less competitive, maybe less driven by strict schedules and deadlines, more laid back.
Okay. But were there also some words with a more negative connotation in this category?
Yes, she made sure to include those too for balance, like the word scatterbrain.
Scatterbrain. Yeah, that doesn't sound very complimentary.
It isn't, usually. And she made a really crucial point here. While you might jokingly call yourself scatterbrained sometimes.
Yeah, in a self-deprecating way.
Exactly. But it's generally considered impolite, even quite rude, to call someone else scatterbrained. It implies they're disorganized and maybe a bit incompetent.
Good point. That distinction between self-description and describing others is vital, especially with potentially negative terms.
Absolutely vital. Self-deprecating humor is one thing, but labeling others negatively is rarely okay. And then, of course, she included the more direct negative words. Not clean and messy. Pretty straightforward.
Right. Okay, that covers the first question. Let's unpack the second one. What was that about?
The second question tackled stress and resilience. It was, is it easy to stay relaxed even when you have pressure? Do small events not change how you feel about the rest of the day?
Okay. How we handle pressure. Big one. So if your answer was yes, you stay pretty calm.
Then Vanessa provided a really nice range of positive adjectives. Easygoing was one.
Easygoing, relaxed, unbothered.
Yeah. Or the more emphatic phrase, nothing phases me.
Nothing phases me. Like you're unflappable, not easily disturbed or upset.
Exactly. Then there was optimistic, obviously focusing on a positive outlook, and even keeled.
Even keeled. I like that one. It implies consistency, stability.
Right. A stable emotional state, not prone to dramatic mood swings. She actually used it about her husband in another video, I think, valuing that trait.
Interesting. It suggests that emotional balance, weathering the ups and downs without getting thrown off course.
Precisely. Then she also listed confident, suggesting self-assurance, calm, implying inner peace, and rational.
Rational. So logical, clear-headed, even when things get stressful.
That's the idea. Keeping your head when others might be losing theirs.
Okay. Now, flip side. What if you do find you get easily stressed if small things do affect your day?
Right. Then you might be described as sensitive. And Vanessa made a good point here. Sensitive isn't automatically negative.
No, it can mean you're empathetic, perceptive.
Exactly. It just means you experience emotions, perhaps external stimuli, more keenly. But then she contrasted that with emotional, which can sometimes imply less control, and especially with moody.
Moody. Yeah, that definitely leans more negative, doesn't it? Suggests unpredictable shifts in temperament, maybe being easily irritated.
It does carry that stronger negative weight than just emotional. And then came a whole cluster of words with clearly negative connotations.
Uh-oh. Like what?
Pessimistic, for someone who generally expects the worst. Then uptight.
Uptight. Tense. Unable to relax. Maybe overly concerned with rules or propriety.
Yeah. Also anxious, high-strung, which is similar to uptight, suggesting nervousness and tension, worry. Obviously someone who worries a lot.
Seems like a lot of words for this state.
It does. And she finished with a pretty strong one. Neurotic.
Neurotic. Okay, that sounds quite clinical almost. Suggests a more pervasive pattern of anxiety, worry, maybe obsessive thoughts. Definitely negative.
Very much so. It's quite a strong label. It's really interesting, though, just how many words English has specifically for this stressed anxious end of the spectrum.
It probably reflects, the common human experience of dealing with stress and anxiety. It's a big part of life for many people.
I think so. And again, Vanessa's caution about using these negative labels on others is so important here. It's more about recognizing these tendencies in ourselves, perhaps, or understanding them with empathy when we see them in others.
Right. Not using them as weapons or quick judgments.
Definitely not.
Okay, moving on. Question 3. This was actually a set of related questions, wasn't it?
Yes, 3 parts. How do you feel introducing yourself to strangers? Do you often feel tired after socializing? And do you prefer solitary activities?
Okay. Clearly tapping into the whole introversion versus extroversion spectrum.
Exactly. That's the core theme here. So if your answers lean towards yes, tired after socializing prefer being alone. The introverted side.
What words does she offer for that?
Terms like reserved, suggesting someone who is perhaps private, doesn't readily share thoughts or feelings. Shy, indicating discomfort or nervousness in social situations.
Timid. Did she include that?
She did. Timid, implying a lack of confidence or boldness, especially in social interactions. And then the straightforward label, introverted.
Introverted, which is becoming a much more neutral and understood term these days, I think.
Definitely. And she also included the simple descriptive phrase, prefer small groups.
Oh, I like that. I prefer small groups. It's so clear, non-judgmental, just states a preference.
Exactly. Very useful. Now, if your answer is pointed the other way, you enjoy meeting strangers, feel energized by socializing.
The extroverted side.
Right. Then you might be described as outgoing. Sociable, friendly, enjoys being around others.
Or life of the party.
She mentioned that one, life of the party, but she immediately added a really wise caveat.
Which was?
That it's generally a compliment best given by others, rather than something you'd typically say about yourself.
Ah, good point. Saying I'm the life of the party might sound a bit arrogant.
Could easily come across that way, yeah. A bit of humility goes a long way. Then, of course, the direct antonym, extroverted.
Makes sense. Any other phrases?
Yes, descriptive phrases like at ease in social situations, suggesting comfort and confidence around people. Take initiative.
Take initiative. What did she mean by that exactly?
She clarified it means being proactive in social settings, starting conversations, organizing things, not just passively waiting for others.
Okay, got it. Being the one to make the first move, socially speaking.
Right. And finally, the simple adjective social, just generally enjoying company and interaction.
Okay, clear distinction between introverted and extroverted options there. Let's move to question 4. This one seemed a bit more philosophical.
Yeah, it delved into our inner worlds versus the outer world. Do you often get lost in thought and kind of forget your surroundings? Do you often think about the meaning of life?
Right. Getting at that difference between being maybe introspective or deep versus being more grounded and practical?
Exactly. So if your answer was yes, you get lost in thought, you contemplate big questions.
Then you might be described as
deep. But again, like life of the party, this is often seen as a compliment when said by others. It implies thoughtfulness, insightfulness.
Calling yourself deep might sound a bit pretentious.
It could, yeah. She also offered the phrase, care about finding truth, as a more explicit way to describe that intellectual curiosity, wanting to understand fundamental things.
Okay. But then she contrasted that with some more critical terms.
Yes, like critical itself, which can be neutral or negative depending on context. And then the definitely negative word, cynical.
Cynical? Yeah, that implies a distrust of others, negativity, assuming the worst motives. Always negative.
Always negative. And for those who really tend to drift off into their own world, she offered dreamer.
Dreamer. Can be positive, suggesting imagination, but maybe also impracticality.
Exactly. It has that ambiguity. Then the phrase, live in my head, emphasizing that focus on internal thoughts over external reality.
And a million miles away.
Yeah, that one's definitely more negative. Suggests being disengaged, not present. And this sort of culminated in the very negative term, airhead.
Ouch. Airhead. Implying someone is ditzy, lacks serious thought, maybe isn't very intelligent. Definitely insulting.
Very insulting. So you see this real spectrum from profound, deep thought at one end to simply being disconnected and, well, an airhead at the other.
Quite a range. Now, what if your answer to those lost in thought questions was no, you're more present, more practical?
Right. Then you might be described as alert, aware of your surroundings, attentive, or detail-oriented.
Detail-oriented, focusing on the specifics, the nuances, often seen as a positive trait, especially at work.
Very much so. And she included astute.
Astute, that's a great word. Suggests sharp-mindedness, good judgment, perceptive. Good for job interviews, perhaps.
Definitely a good one for professional contexts. Aware is similar to alert. And then she introduced realist.
A realist. Someone who sees things as they are, without illusions. Grounded.
Yes, and closely related. Practical. Emphasizing a focus on what works, on tangible outcomes, effective action, rather than abstract theories. Dealing with the world pragmatically.
Okay, makes sense. Question 5. This tackled being unwavering versus being flexible, right?
Exactly. The question was, when you want something, do you often not change your mind? gets into persistence versus adaptability.
So if you don't often change your mind, you stick to your guns.
But then you might be described positively as diligent, hardworking, and careful or motivated. Both generally good traits, especially professionally.
But then it can tip over into less desirable territory.
It can, yes.
Yeah.
She moved into words suggesting maybe too much rigidity, like stubborn, obvious.
Stubborn, yeah, classic negative.
And the very emphatic idiom, stubborn as a mule, really paints a picture.
It certainly does. Any others in that vein?
Headstrong, which is similar to stubborn, implying a willful determination that might ignore advice or warnings. Adamant.
Adamant, meaning you're firmly sticking to your opinion or decision, refusing to be persuaded.
Right. And opinionated. Now, this one's tricky. Having opinions is fine, but opinionated often implies expressing them too strongly or dogmatically.
Yeah, Vanessa cautioned about the delivery, didn't she? How you express those opinions matters.
Hugely. Because if you're not careful, opinionated can easily slide into pushy.
Pushy. Trying to impose your views or desires on others. Always negative.
Always negative. Then there was persistent.
Persistent can be good, like not giving up easily, but also bad.
Exactly. It depends on the context. Persistently pursuing a goal can be admired. Persistently trying to sell someone something they don't want is annoying.
Yeah.
And finally, bossy.
Bossy, yeah. Telling people what to do in a forceful, unwelcome way, usually used negatively, especially historically towards women, unfortunately.
Back to the very relevant point about its usage, yes. Okay, so that's the unwavering, sometimes stubborn end. What about the other side? More flexible, willing to change your mind.
Right, if you're more adaptable.
Then you've got a nice set of generally positive words. Flexible, obviously. Compliant, meaning willing to agree or obey. Reasonable, suggesting you listen to logic and fairness.
Open-minded.
Yes, open-minded, willing to consider new ideas. And agreeable, pleasant and easy to get along with. Generally, these are seen as positive qualities.
But there's a potential downside here, too.
There is. She pointed out the word submissive.
Submissive. Okay, that sounds potentially negative.
It often is. It suggests someone who yields too easily, who perhaps never stands up for their own needs or beliefs.
Leading to
The rather vivid idiom, get walked on.
get walked on like a doormat. People take advantage of you.
Exactly. She used that doormat analogy. It really drives home the negative consequence of being too passive, too compliant. You lose your own agency.
So it's about finding that balance. Flexibility is good, but not at the expense of self-respect.
Precisely. Standing up for yourself, as she put it, is crucial. You need to be able to advocate for your own needs and boundaries.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, the final question, number 6. This was about hospitality.
Yes, hospitality and generosity. When people come over to your house, when guests come, do they feel comfortable? Do you go above and beyond what is necessary to take care of them? Explores warmth and giving.
Nice. So if the answer is yes, you're welcoming and generous.
Then there's a lovely collection of positive words. Hospitable, obviously, nice, friendly, good starting points.
But she had a warning about one word, didn't she? Especially for learners from certain language backgrounds.
She did. A really critical warning about the word sympathetic.
Sympathetic, what was the issue?
Well, for speakers of Romance languages, the cognate often just means nice or likable. But in English, while it can relate to being kind, its primary meaning is about understanding and sharing someone's sorrow or difficulty, feeling sympathy for someone.
Ah, okay. So if you say he's very sympathetic, an English speaker might think you mean he's good at comforting people who are sad, not just that he's a nice guy.
Exactly. Her example was perfect. If someone loses their job, you feel sympathetic towards them. It's about sharing negative feelings. Using it just to mean nice or friendly can lead to real misunderstandings.
That's a super important distinction, a common false friend issue. So what words should be used for general warmth and kindness?
Words like compassionate, showing care for others' suffering, considerate, thinking about others' feelings, generous, willing to give time, money, or kindness, warm, warm-hearted, all much better choices for general friendliness.
Well, warm-hearted, yeah, they convey that welcoming feeling. Others.
Helpful, obviously, down to earth.
Down to earth, what does that mean exactly?
She explained it well with a celebrity example. It means someone, maybe someone important or famous, who is still natural, unpretentious, relatable, not putting on airs.
Got it. Likeable because they seem normal.
Yeah. And finally, sincere and genuine, meaning authentic, not fake, and dependable, someone you can rely on. It paints this picture of someone truly caring, authentic, reliable.
A very positive image indeed. And the negatives for someone less welcoming.
Pretty straightforward. Unpleasant, selfish, and self-centered, all clearly negative, implying a lack of consideration or generosity.
Okay. Wow. That was a journey through personality vocabulary. Let's take a breath and maybe unpack this first big section a bit. Almost 100 terms.
It really was a whirlwind tour, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What strikes me most, looking back at all those words,
Yeah.
is just the sheer subtlety, the nuance within each category. It's not just organized versus messy. It's organized, put together, have it together, a type. Each carries a slightly different shade of meaning.
That's true. Or the difference between sensitive, which could be positive, and moody, which is definitely negative.
Exactly. Or deep versus airhead. Understanding these finer distinctions is what allows for really precise, really effective communication when we talk about people.
And I have to say, structuring it around those self-assessment questions, that was really engaging as a learning method. It makes you actively think, which of these words actually fits me? Or which fits my friend?
It does. It connects the language directly to real-world observation and self-reflection. It's not just abstract vocabulary.
So if we zoom out, look at the bigger picture here. What's the real value of having this huge arsenal of personality words?
Well, I think it goes beyond just having more labels. It's about cultivating a deeper, more nuanced understanding of human behavior itself.
How so?
The more words we have to describe these complex traits, the better equipped we are to first articulate our own observations with clarity and precision, and second, maybe approach others with a bit more empathy and understanding. We see the shades of gray, not just black and white.
That's a great point. Having the language helps shape the understanding. So what does this all mean for you listening right now?
Well, hopefully you've picked up quite a few new words and phrases to add to your vocabulary toolbox.
Yeah, words you can use to describe yourself, maybe in a job interview or just in conversation, and also to describe the people in your life, friends, family, colleagues.
And having that ability, being able to articulate someone's personality with accuracy, but also with sensitivity, that can genuinely foster better understanding and smoother communication in all sorts of settings, personal, professional.
Definitely. Think about describing a difficult colleague or understanding a character's motivation in a film.
Absolutely. And beyond direct communication, this vocabulary significantly boosts your comprehension skills when you're consuming English language media.
Right. Books, movies, TV shows, even other podcasts. Character descriptions are everywhere, and they're often rich with exactly these kinds of adjectives and nouns. Understanding them adds a whole new layer.
You start to pick up on the subtleties the author or screenwriter intended.
Makes total sense. Okay, we have thoroughly explored the fascinating, complex landscape of personality expressions. Shall we shift gears?
Let's do it. Time to move on to the second major part of Vanessa's lesson, vocabulary related to the human body.
And again, she covered a huge amount here too, didn't she? Another 100 or so expressions?
Pretty much, yeah. It was a really comprehensive anatomical tour, but crucially, combined with idioms.
How did she approach this section?
Very systematically.
Yeah.
Started right at the top of the head and worked your way down section by section all the way to the feet.
Logical. And you said this kind of fundamental vocabulary is crucial.
Absolutely crucial for everyday chat, for understanding health information, doctor's visits, and like we said, for getting a handle on all those figurative expressions, the idioms that are built around body parts. English is full of them.
Okay, so where did she start? Top of the head.
Yep. Began with the head itself, and almost immediately she introduced a really useful idiom off the top of my head.
Ah, yeah. I don't know the exact figure off the top of my head. Means without checking, spontaneously.
Exactly. Speaking without needing to look it up or think too hard, a great way to preface an estimate or an answer you're not 100% sure about.
Very common phrase. Okay, after head.
Moved on to hair. Covered the basic color words brown, black, and the specific terms brunette for brown hair, blonde, or blonde.
Ah, noting the E for women, traditionally.
Right. And redhead or ginger. And she made that important point about ginger sometimes being a bit sensitive.
Yeah, it can sometimes be used teasingly or even pejoratively in some places, like the UK. Good to be aware of that potential nuance.
Definitely. Then came the basic face anatomy, scalp, forehead, eyebrows, eyelids, eyelashes.
Standard stuff. But she added a specific note here.
She did, which was really thoughtful. Specifically for her Asian audience, she mentioned monolid and double eyelid.
Okay.
And explained that while these terms are common in some Asian cultures and languages, they're actually not commonly used or even widely understood in everyday Western English. People would usually just say eyelid.
Oh, that's fascinating. Another example of cultural specificity in language. So, sticking to the general term eyelid is usually safer in broader English contexts.
Generally, yes. Unless you're in a very specific discussion where that distinction is relevant, eyelid is the standard.
Good to know.
Okay, next.
Move to eyes. And the classic idiom, one I bet many learners have encountered, don't roll your eyes at me.
Huh. Yes, usually from a parent or teacher. Expresses annoyance, disbelief, exasperation. Very visual.
Very visual and pretty universal in its meaning, I think. Then she covered cheeks, ears, and earlobe, mentioning pierced earlobe as a common thing.
And another idiom with ears.
Yes, a really useful one. I'm all ears.
I'm all ears, meaning I'm listening intently, tell me more. Very direct and enthusiastic way to show you're ready to listen.
Exactly, really positive. The nose, including the parts bridge the nose and nostrils. And then onto the mouth.
The mouth area, lots going on there.
Lips, gums, teeth, tongue, the basics. But yeah, this area is just packed with idioms in English.
Okay, give us some examples she covered.
Well, there's my lips are sealed.
My lips are sealed. Classic way to promise you'll keep a secret. Won't say a word. Right. Then have a sweet tooth.
Not a literal sweet tooth. It means you love sugary foods, cakes, candies.
Exactly, a craving for sweets. And that incredibly relatable one. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Yes, that frustrating feeling. You know it, but you just can't recall the word or name right now. So common.
Happens to everyone. Then moving down slightly, the chin. And the lovely, encouraging idiom, keep your chin up.
Yeah. Stay positive. Don't get discouraged, especially when facing difficulties. A message of hope.
It is. Below that, the neck. And the idiom, stick my neck out for someone.
Stick my neck out, meaning take a risk. Put yourself in a vulnerable position to help or support somebody else.
Yeah, Vanessa's explanation linking it to literally exposing a vulnerable body part like an animal might really makes the meaning memorable, the sense of risk involved.
It does. And finally, for the head neck area.
Face. And the idiom, put on a face or put on a happy face.
Yes. Projecting an emotion outwardly, usually happiness or calmness, even if you don't feel that way inside. Pretending to be okay.
Exactly. Like putting on a brave face in a difficult situation. Something most of us have probably done.
Very relatable. Okay, that covers the head and neck. Let's journey down to the upper body. Shoulders first.
Shoulders first, yes. And the rather unfriendly idiom, give someone the cold shoulder.
Right. To intentionally ignore someone, treat them in an unfriendly, aloof way. Show displeasure without confrontation.
Precisely. Then chest, which she noted is the general polite term for both men and women. And the idiom, get something off my chest.
Get something off my chest. To confess or talk about something that's been worrying you or bothering you usually brings a sense of relief.
That feeling of relief is key, yeah. Next, anatomically, armpits, then arms. And an idiom with arms.
Twist someone's arm.
That's the one. Twist someone's arm means to persuade or pressure someone quite strongly to do something they were initially reluctant about. Often used playfully, too, like, oh, go on, you twisted my arm, meaning you persuaded me.
Right. Then elbow, and the phrase, need some elbow room.
Which literally means needing more physical space to move comfortably, but can also be used figuratively, like needing more freedom or independence in a situation.
Ah, okay. Then wrist and hand. And the super common helpful idiom, give someone a hand.
Meaning, of course, to help or assist someone. Can you give me a hand with these boxes? Very everyday usage.
Definitely. What about the parts of the hand?
She covered palm, fingers, and thumb, and included that pronunciation tip. The K in knuckle is silent.
Silent P. Good reminder. Knuckle. Did she mention idioms with knuckles?
She briefly mentioned knuckle sandwich, but quickly advised against using it.
Because it means?
Punch in the mouth.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely not one for polite conversation, just good to recognize if you hear it. She also covered fingerprint and fingernail.
Okay. And the names of the fingers?
Yep, went through them. Pinky, or more formal little finger. Ring finger, where wedding rings traditionally go. Middle finger.
The one with the warning.
Exactly. She rightly cautioned about the rude, offensive gesture associated with raising just the middle finger in many Western cultures. Crucial cultural awareness there.
Very crucial for learners to know, then.
Pointer finger, or index finger, used for pointing, and thumb.
Got it. What came after hands? Moving to the torso?
Yes. She used the general term chest area as a polite, slightly vague way to refer to that part of the torso. Then collarbone, the bone connecting the shoulder to the sternum, ribs, and the full structure rib cage.
Okay. And lower down?
belly button or navel, a universal feature. Then stomach, or the more informal belly.
An idiom related to the stomach area.
Yes, a really insightful one. Trust your gut.
Trust your gut, meaning trust your intuition, your instinctive feeling about a situation or person, even if you can't logically explain it.
Exactly. It speaks to that idea of innate wisdom, an inner voice, a very powerful idiom.
It is. All right, we've covered the upper body. Time to continue the journey down to the lower body.
Lower body, it is. Starting with hips. Then, for the genital area, she used the polite, general term, private parts.
A good, safe term to use. Any others?
She mentioned crotch, but noted it's mainly used when referring to men, often regarding clothing fit, and groin.
Groin. Where's that exactly?
The area where the legs meet the torso, the inner thigh muscles, often used medically, or when talking about sports injuries, like a groin strain.
Ah, okay. Then the main parts of the leg.
Leg, obviously. Me, again, reminding us of the silent K. Then butt, with the more polite alternatives being backside or bum.
Bum is quite common in British English, maybe slightly informal. Backside feels a bit more neutral.
Good distinction. Then thigh, the upper part of the leg. Shin, the front part of the lower leg. She noted this is a bit more technical.
Right, you might talk about banging your shin on something.
Exactly. And the back of the lower leg is the calf. She helpfully pointed out this is also the word for a baby cow, and the L is silent.
Calf.
Silent pal. Got it. Okay, nearly there. Down to the feet. Finally, the soot. Plural feet, of course. Then ankle, the joint connecting the foot and leg. She added a practical warning, don't twist your ankle.
Good advice. Always painful. Then toes. Any specific toe names?
Just the big toe and the little toe are the ones with common individual names in English. The ones in between are just toes.
Fair enough. What about the bottom of the foot?
She covered the foot arch, or the arch of my foot, and the heel, the back part, and importantly pointed out the spelling difference.
Right. H-E-E-L for the foot part versus H-E-A-L for getting better or recovering from injury. Homophones. Easy to mix up in writing.
Very easy. And she wrapped up this entire body section with one last really great positive idiom.
Which was?
Put my best foot forward.
Ah, yes. To make the best possible impression, try your hardest, be well prepared, especially when starting something new or meeting important people. Great idiom.
It really is. Universally applicable advice, too.
So looking back at this whole body section, what's the takeaway? It's more than just anatomy, right?
Oh, much more. What's fascinating is how seamlessly Vanessa blended the basic anatomical terms, which everyone needs, with this incredibly rich layer of idiomatic expressions.
And these idioms, they tell us something.
I think they offer a fascinating glimpse into, well, cultural attitudes and the ways English speakers think metaphorically about their bodies and the actions they perform. Sticking your neck out, getting something off your chest, trusting your gut. These aren't literal. They're metaphors grounded in physical experience.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. So practically speaking, what does this extensive body vocabulary mean for you, the listener, in your daily life?
Well, first off, the anatomical stuff is just essential for practical, everyday communication. Talking about aches and pains, describing people, understanding instructions.
Going to the doctor, for instance. You need to be able to say, my ankle hurts, or I have a pain in my chest.
Exactly. But beyond that, the idioms add so much color and depth. They're everywhere. In spoken English, in movies, in songs. Understanding them is key to understanding native speakers when they communicate more figuratively, more expressively.
Yeah, you start noticing them everywhere once you know them. Give me a hand, keep your chin up, off the top of my head. They're constant.
Constant. And knowing them really enhances your overall comprehension. You're not just getting the literal meaning, you're getting the cultural nuance, the metaphor.
It also helps you sound more natural when you start using some of them yourself, I suppose.
Definitely. Using idioms correctly in the right context is a big step towards fluency. And understanding body language idioms also helps decode actual body language sometimes, or at least the way we talk about it.
Makes sense. So it enriches your understanding on multiple levels: practical, cultural, linguistic.
Absolutely. It's foundational vocabulary, but with layers of meaning.
Okay, fantastic. So to kind of bring this deep dive towards a close then, we've really covered a lot of ground today, thanks to Vanessa's video.
We certainly have. Two major areas of advanced vocabulary.
First, we explored that huge range of personality expressions, giving you, hopefully, almost 100 different ways to describe the nuances of character your own and others.
Looking at everything from organization and stress management to introversion, extroversion, thoughtfulness, flexibility, and generosity.
And second, we took that systematic journey through the human body, covering essential anatomical terms from head to toe.
But also unlocking the meaning behind dozens of common and incredibly useful body-related idioms.
We really tried to delve into the subtle differences in meaning, especially with the personality words, and highlighted how important context is.
And looked at how these words and phrases actually show up in real-world conversations and media, using Vanessa's examples and the native speaker interactions she included.
So a massive thank you for joining us on this pretty detailed exploration today. We really, really appreciate you spending your time with us.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure digging into this source material. It's packed with practical, useful language.
It really was, and hopefully you feel a bit more equipped now. Which leads me to a final thought, something for you to maybe ponder on your own.
Okay.
Now that you have this significantly expanded vocabulary for describing personality, I wonder, how might consciously trying to use these more specific words actually change the way you perceive and describe yourself and the people around you? Does having more precise language refine your observations?
Ooh, that's a deep question. Does the language shape the thought?
Maybe. Or, thinking about all those body idioms we discussed, trust your gut, stick your neck out, cold shoulder. What insights do they collectively offer? What do they tell you about how English speakers maybe subconsciously conceptualize their bodies, their feelings, and their actions in a more metaphorical way?
That's fascinating too, how the physical becomes the basis for the abstract. Lots to think about there.
Definitely something to mull over. And with those thoughts swirling, we'll say goodbye for now.